as well, and I take that as a compliment because Cameron and I are 11 years apart age-wise. So thank you. I always say thank you when people say, "How are you, Cameron?" My name is Rinehart, and I've been a neighbor here in the city of Raleigh for the last 17 years. My family and I live in District C, not too terribly far from here, about a 15-minute drive. And my background is as a local church pastor. Grew up in Miami. Dad's from Ohio. Mom was raised in Guatemala, and have a love for the city of Miami. This has been my adopted home now for the better part of my adult life. I came up here to go to Duke Divinity School and fell in love with it back in 2009, which feels like many moons and versions of.
The big shift happened for me around COVID year 2020, when I quit my job and started a small business, and I found myself going from this office cube at a farmer's market selling alongside other small business owners. And that was, like I said, a big shift where I started to view the city and the community in a very different light. And since that time, it's been 6 years or so, the past 6 years, I've just been very involved. I have been partnering with the city of Raleigh over the past 4 years to host this free community event in downtown at Moore Square called First Friday Market and Movie Night. And the intention behind that initiative was to bring families out to downtown Raleigh to do something for free. It's a free movie, free live music, and we have small business owners and food trucks. It's a good platform for them to connect with the residents. And through that work, I also got more involved with the city. I started learning more about how city council works and how they're serving the city. And I got appointed on the Environmental Advisory Board. I just got reappointed for my second term, actually. I've served on the Hispanic and Immigrant Affairs Board, and I'm currently also on the Human Relations Commission. Just trying to keep it short. I'm also a small business owner, so support for small businesses is core to the work that I've done. Community engagement is dear to my heart, and also affordability for all of us to be able to live and afford to live in the city and stay here. And to me, affordability also means taking care of the people that work for the city. So the city staff and the workforce, they need to be paid competitively, and they need to have the benefits to stay.
Thank you, Sana. That wasn't exactly the introduction I'm looking for, but
All right.
You're very complete. Josh.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks y'all for having me. My name is Josh Bradley. It's not my first time running. I've been here every election cycle and in between when I haven't had conflicts. I live in District A on the corner of Millbrook and North Hills, which I don't know if anybody's been there recently, but they rezoned and they are putting luxury condos right at the corner there. They took down a lot of the woods and they were building luxury condos there. They just repaved the road in front of it, like just in front of that building, they got a new road and new turn lanes, and then it went back to normal when it gets to mine. And obviously I'm very close to North Hill, so I have consistently run against cane rezonings. That doesn't mean I've been elected, but I'm here. I've been in Raleigh since '92. I've lived in where I live at now since 2009. I was disappointed when the council disbanded the CACs, and I'm excited that we have people like Christina that help get it pushed forward. I think it's important. CACs are important, and even more important is if we want to build the CACs, we've got to organize our neighborhoods. Like even if they don't agree with what I stand for, a lot of people don't agree with me on a lot of things, but it's important to get neighbors to talk. If we can get our neighbors to talk, and then we can move the neighborhood groups into the CACs, and then we have a powerful way that together we can affect the governance of our city. I'm running to try to represent the workers, the poor, the people that are often neglected in modern society. Small business and big business will be represented regardless. Whoever works on the council, there'll be a majority of people that are campaigning on businesses, and that's cool. I don't have a problem with businesses. I have a problem with businesses that do not pay their workers or treat their workers well enough to live in the city. So a slightly different approach. I think we're all really nice people that really believe in what we talk about. So it's a good crop of candidates, and we're all friendly, and we want to do right by y'all. Again, this is my fourth time, so I won't bore you with the details. A lot of you have probably seen me talk before. Josh Bradley, city council. I've got a 14-page, or I think it's maybe 12-page platform on my website if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty, but I don't want to do that now because we don't have enough time. Thank you very much, my friends.
Thanks, Josh. We'll just take it as we roll along here. Thanks to everybody for the introduction to each of you. I should say that candidates that run at large, it's kind of I guess a good thing and a bad thing. In the past, this CAC in particular hardly ever sees at-large candidates, whether they're elected or otherwise. They have a tendency to focus downtown, usually live downtown. It's very unusual to find candidates running for at-large that do not live downtown. So my one caution to you is when you get elected, do not forget about us. The door is always open. Please come visit us. And Josh gave me a very good promo for CACs. This is what we do. The idea is to bring topics that are important to the city and the residents to the people that actually are concerned. Just let it go at that. All right, let's take it topic by topic, and then we'll kind of open it up for the audience. Let's start with the easy one, affordability. Very easy, not for the city, but maybe it'll be easy for somebody someday. The reason I bring it up here is because we just went through the rezoning of North Hills. We just gained 3 more 37-story buildings, which could have easily accomplished the same thing with a 12 or even a 20-story building. Supposedly same density, but it's got to go higher. There's only one thing that drives it higher, and that's profit. And if there's something else, I don't know what it is. So the question becomes, we're sitting on a frequent transit corridor, logical place to have affordability, yet we don't have any affordability except for 2 projects, 2 rezonings that were approved using the Midtown area plan guidance of having to have a certain percentage of affordability at a certain percentage of AMI. They're the only 2. My concern is now with Kane bypassing all that for whatever reason, it's going to be even harder to create that same scenario for other development coming into the area. And this area is due to explode. There are other rezonings that are approved here that the shovels have not hit the ground. So what you see today is just a shadowing of what's going to come in the future. So what I'd like to do is get some ideas from each candidate on how you can foster more affordability, particularly in this area. The city has guidance for affordability. To date, nobody seems to want to take advantage of it. I'm not sure why that is. In other words, they can gain more height for a building if they build a certain percentage of affordable units. Sounds lofty, sounds nice, but again, it's not a very popular item with the developers. So I'd like to hear from each one of you. I don't want you to go on too long, but I'll give you a couple minutes and just some ideas on affordability. Let's start, Josh. Let's start from the other end.
No, so she raised her hand.
Oh, I missed that. I can't see.
Oh, you can go. We can.
Go ahead, go for it.
All right, so,
Volunteer.
first of all, I agree with you. I personally believe that affordability should be at the center of the conversation when we talk about rezonings, especially when we're talking about major rezonings such as this one. In this particular case, I want the city to grow, and I do believe that we talk about supply and demand. We need more supply, we need more housing so we can stabilize the cost. However, what I would like to see is that as we're adding density, we need to have conversations about having some percentage of affordable units in those rezonings. So in this particular case, I believe, and Christina, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, what they offered for affordability was that they offered a bonus towards the city's affordable housing fund, which to me, and I'm just gonna, sounds like, here's the money, go build it somewhere else. We're just gonna build the market rate housing here, which may, and some may argue that if you build enough housing, the rents may stabilize or the pricing may stabilize. I believe that kind of approach takes a longer time. And for someone like me, I used to live in North Hills like 16 years ago or so. That was me trying to get a taste of the city life right here in Raleigh. But I was kicked out because I couldn't, I was not literally kicked out, but I left because I couldn't afford to live in that area. So I got pushed further up north. So that's why I believe that in short, we should be talking about affordability with each rezoning. And I believe I know we cannot require developers to include affordable housing because that's a state law, but I believe if council worked together as a team, they would be on the same page, that this is the target, the developers will work with us.
One thing I do want to interject, and something you might want to think about for the future. Council has the power to mediate with developers. Even though by legislature, you can't require affordability, you certainly can bargain for it. So when they're asking you for things that are outside of guidance documents like North Hills, you certainly can say, hey, wait a second, you're asking for something more than what you're currently allowed to build. How do we work this out? This is what we'd like to see. Can you do this? And it doesn't happen. Which brings me to the second point I want to raise right now before I forget. It's more on me. When you're on council, it takes two things. It takes a strong voice, and it takes an inner strength to be able to speak up and say, wait, maybe more discussion should be held on a particular topic. Let's not vote today. Let's take the time to listen more and gather all of the facts, not perhaps only the ones provided by staff. Let's listen to the people. Let's create that opportunity, and then let's move on from that point on. And if you remember I said that, that'd be great. So I'm sorry I interrupted your affordability.
Oh, no, we're on the same page. I absolutely agree with that. And that's why I said, when I said that even though we can legally not require the developers, if the council had the same goal, they were all on the same page, we could have those conversations.
Josh, you guys really don't have to raise your hands.
Josh Bradley, everybody. My approach with affordability is that we can't count on the developers to do it. They're just not going to do it. If we can't require them to do it, then we just need to develop our stuff on our own on city land with our money. It would be cheaper, because the thing about public-private partnerships is the private part is going to make money, and it's cheaper if we do it in-house. There's ways that we can do it that need to be explored, but if we're waiting on the kindness of John Kane to solve our housing problem, I think we're going to be waiting a long time. And this whole theory of trickle-down housing, if we just increase supply of the market rate and the luxury, maybe it'll trickle down, but it won't trickle down for a generation. Like, I mean, it takes a while to come down. People keep moving in, and people keep moving in that are pretty well-to-do and are looking for stuff, but that doesn't leave room for us that have been here, right? I bought my house for like $116,000 in 2006. I'm taxed like it's $260,000. It is completely worth $115,000. And people say, Josh, but your house has increased in value. Isn't that good? And I say no, for two reasons. One, I live in town. I don't know if y'all are familiar with Spring Garden, the older townhouse that were built when my little sister was born, on the corner of Millbrook and North Hills. I love living there. I love my neighbors. About half my neighbors rent. So every time the property valuations go up and tax goes up, the rent goes up, which means that I lose neighbors that I care about almost every time that there's a reassessment. And other than that, if I were to sell my house at the pie in the sky rate of $300,000, which means I've probably drugged somebody that's trying to make a deal to give me that money for the house. I can't, and I sell that. And even if I would be free and clear, and I owe the bank a lot of money on it, I still couldn't buy another house in the city. So there's stuff that they're trying to do, but we can't rely on the developers. And people talk a lot about missing middle. Missing middle is great, except that it cuts a lot of the public input, and it does not require affordability.
All the public input.
Yeah.
Unless you live next door, you don't even get told about it.
Right.
It's all the public. They rezoned the entire county.
Right. Exactly. And that's a problem, right? Missing middle is being pitched as a solution to affordable housing, and it is not, because when they're rezoning that, they're putting $1 million condos in the middle of established neighborhoods. I don't have a problem with density, and I don't have a problem if they wanted the luxury condos that they're putting right in front of my house. If it were all affordable, they could do 100 stories if they could put out fires up there, as long as it was for people that made under 50% of the AMI, but that's not who they're building it for, and it's not how it's being used. So if there's not a requirement for affordability, which the developers aren't going to want to do because it's not going to be as profitable. So we as a city, our city isn't here to make developers money. It's not here to be run as a business. Because it's not, it's here to take care of the people that live in the city, and that's where we need to focus, and we need to prioritize housing, in such a way as we can actually do something to people, because people are going out, people are talking about, well, I mean, except I guess Moore Square thing fell apart, didn't it? According to the Andy. I'm not blaming Christina, I'm just looking at her for verification.
Well, I don't wanna take your time, so I can't
but-
answer it right now.
Josh, I don't wanna cut you off, but I think we need to let the other
Okay.
person speak.
Sorry, thank you.
You were very complete.
Can you remind me of the question, Larry, because you had the interjection?
I'm sorry.
And was there a second piece to the interjection after something?
Yeah, there really were two pieces. The point is right now that in this particular area, we have an example like John Kane, who just built beyond what the guidance documents recommend for building heights. To go along with that should be affordability.
Plan.
Yes, with the
Yes.
Midtown area plan, as well as city guidance. He exceeded both of those. So the idea is being on a transit corridor, you're supposed to have affordability, but as has been mentioned, it's not required. So the idea is, how do you bring about affordability when you can't force people to have affordability, but at the same time, you want to foster affordability, particularly where it ought to be on a mass transit line. I don't think it was two parts, but it's a general comment on how you like to see affordability develop.
Yeah, for me, it has to be both housing supply and housing subsidy. So echoing a little bit of the thread that Josh pulled there, because we've been on the campaign trail together, I feel like there's some overlap in the Venn diagram that we're getting. If it is just luxury housing supply, we've failed all of you miserably, right? It has to be a spectrum of housing. So I've said more housing, more choices, more places, right? This same acute problem that you're facing is, what my neighbors in Southeast Raleigh are also facing. A lot of those areas in particular were historically redlined as well, different than this part of the city in most places. And so they could only buy there. Now they can't afford to live there, right? And even with some of the great things we've done with the transit corridor, that comes with downstream implications for displacement. I don't really use the language of gentrification, but hopefully kind of generally what I'm talking about. So for me, it's both housing supply, but very closely linked to housing subsidy. As much as we can get that built around the city with the priority on the transit corridors, because another part of folks' housing, part of folks' affordability calculus is our car dependency, right? I'm not gonna steal your thunder, I'm gonna stay in my lane. But something that we share is the fact that we need affordable and attainable housing, not just rentership housing, but also potential ownership housing for more neighbors. That's connected to life-giving and living wage jobs. That changes people's affordability calculus. We're creating a lot of jobs in Raleigh and Wake County. We need to make sure that neighbors have tools to get those jobs with reskilling, upskilling, workforce development as well. And that connection between housing and jobs needs to be an efficient, reliable, and affordable transit network. I'm gonna stop on the transit piece there.
Okay, thank you. You, by the way, you mentioned one thing that should be pointed out when you talk about gentrification. We have a different type of gentrification that normally you would consider to be a racial issue, but it's not really a racial issue. In this case, I'd say it's an income gentrification.
Yeah, it's a.
Every time,
Cast.
every time
Yeah.
a developer comes in and wants to build an improvement on that same property, we lose what was previously an affordable home. And we gotta find the balance. How do you preserve the affordable homes at the same time building market value at the other end?
I'm trying to be very careful on the time too, but you're teasing me to go into naturally occurring affordable housing preservation, but.
Yeah, you can do a quick response.
Okay, I have time.
Yeah,
So preservation of naturally occurring affordable housing is also good. We should have more programs that help people stay in place and manage their tax burden, but also preserving some of these homes that right now were built before we had exclusionary zoning a lot of times and are naturally occurring. When you see, my kids go to school at Brooks, so not terribly far from here. Maybe some of you went to Brooks or have neighbors who went to Brooks. I see some of the downstream implications of what happens with smaller lots, McMansion density too. Not my ideal, just on the record personally, as much as I do appreciate gentle density, gradual density in a lot of neighborhoods, right? Preserving naturally occurring affordable housing is really important. Last piece, and this is something that Whitney and I engaged on Facebook, is leveraging city, county, and state-owned property as best we can for some of the housing that's affordable and attainable. That could be generational change and investment for neighbors in a lot of different places in the city. We live in the state capital. There's a lot of publicly owned land. I think we should start with the home team, right, the city. And then one of the key ideas that I've been working on for the last 10 years privately is, as a local church pastor, I've been working with churches as a partnership, not stealing land, but working with churches to think about stewardship of maybe an educational annex of a surface parking lot that was bequeathed from a family as an investment, and thinking about stewardship of that property for affordable and attainable housing over time to invest in the neighborhood.
Thank you. Cameron?
It's hard to be the fourth. No, it's very easy. I've always been the last Z at the end of the alphabet. So we've heard a lot. I think we could continue talking all night about affordability. It's a tough issue, and everybody has a different idea for how to attack it. I think that the way that I approach affordability is fundamentally different from most folks, because the first thing that I look at when I look at the cost of living is how much it costs to get around, right? A lot of what we spend our money on is what we put in our body, what we put over our heads, and how we get places, how we get between those two and our work. And on average, car ownership costs $12,000 a year. I'm not saying that everybody should get rid of their car. That's not what I'm saying, but I think we should give people reasonable options to not drive everywhere. And that means restructuring our transit system. I didn't mention this in my intro, but I did used to work in the city's transit department. But I kind of want to shift over to development and developers, because I think that's probably more apropos for an audience like this. I have right now a lease with Kane. So Kane is my landlord at my property, or not at my property, at their property, at my business. And I actually already have experience extracting concessions from Kane. So that is the type of thing.
You're hired.
Thank you. Appreciate it. You can do that at your nearest voting location. So Kane has actually been tremendously supportive of me, and I want to emphasize that not all development is good, but good development is good. Good development that complements the neighborhood character, that adds amenities and features for people to get together as community. I'd like to think that my business is an example of that good development, where people can like come in and grab coffee and meet other folks. And we had a tough December and a tough January because we're about to go into a world war. My brother's actually over across the pond right now as part of that. Kind of, crazy to think that like I'm here, he's there. But people didn't really want to buy $7 coffees after they spending a lot of money on Christmas. So I had a really hard time. And I called my broker, who is, I essentially got Kane to give me a couple more months of free rent. That they had already given me a bunch of free rent, and they gave me even more because they understood that I was in this particular position and I needed some help. And so I frankly cannot understand why the city council has not been more effective in extracting similar concessions from Kane, when I, as this little toothless business owner, can say, hey, I need a couple more months of free rent. And we have a city council right now that is kind of saying, yeah, there it is. There's the city for you. And yeah,
No, not Christina. We have two representatives that stood up for us. Only
yeah.
two.
And I think we need more representatives on council that
Yeah, that's why
are willing to go to toe to toe with these folks. I'm on a first name basis with some executives in Kane. And I do want everybody to understand that Kane is not John running around with his pocketbook. It's the corporation to whom I pay rent is based in Delaware, because it's a tax haven. Right? So these are large institutional ties that we're working with, and these folks are going in on these big projects together, and it's not like we can just fight that and go toe to toe as a CAC. We have to work with them to a point and then draw that hard line and let them know, hey, this is what we are trying to do as a city. We can walk this path together, but at the end of the day, like, we're city council. Right, we're the ones that are going to give you the yes or no, and until you give us what we want, maybe a pedestrian bridge across Six Forks, they could, if not pay for that, take in enough money to make it easy for NCDOT to pay for that. I actually have the project manager for bridges at NCDOT on the line because he used to work in transit as well. And he's given me the plan to get a pedestrian bridge across Six Forks. So like, what I'm trying to say to y'all is not that I have, you know, better ideas than anybody, but that I approach these problems in a different way. And it is through partnership and it's through knowing folks and having a deep desire to get these types of things done. Because I rode my bike here tonight from downtown and it was a freaking perilous journey. And I would rather have, I didn't do it to make a point. I ride my bike everywhere, but I did also make a point. Like it's not accessible to get around these parts of the city unless you have a car. That's what I'm trying to change. Developers can be a part of that. I think I'm starting to circle, so I'm gonna sit back down.
You are, we're gonna get to transportation a little bit later.
Can I add something?
Yeah, sure.
So, I just wanted to
Open
echo,
dialogue.
yes, that's why I thought it would be appropriate to do that. I want to echo what you said, Cameron, collaboration, it comes down to working together. To that, I would like to say that in order to increase the supply of housing throughout Raleigh, we have 110,000 units that already have been approved but have not yet been built. I don't know the span of time, it may be 5 years or so, probably more, I don't know. But
Some are 10 years.
right, so these units, what I'm saying is that these units have been approved, 110,000 units of housing have been approved. And I know I read a number, 20 rezonings are just in the area of downtown. Why have they not been built? Is it something that's holding them, something on their end? Is it an issue with the city's end? Is it in our permitting department? So, we need to work with them to make sure that, we increase the supply of housing and build more housing and build it in the right way.
Should we keep going or we?
No, I think we'll be here all night if we do that. I know we're time limited. I do want to kind of follow up on what comes along with affordability, and that's of course a push for density. Density opens up another can of worms, and that's called missing middle with people I've already mentioned. Missing middle is a great concept if it does what it was asked to do, and that is create affordable alternate living spaces. It hasn't done that to date. And it depends on, again, where council's focus is, where the program's focus is. While they write a good strategy to encourage affordability and try to do it through missing middle, it doesn't work. And the other problem that's wrong with missing middle, as somebody already mentioned, the only people that are even knowledgeable that something is going to occur on next door's property are the people on both sides and behind. That's the only requirement. Now, my understanding is the state's about to fix that by improving, I guess, opening up the area of notification for missing middle. And that's a very welcome change. So at least you have some early input into what's going on within your neighborhood. But right now, even though it's been mentioned several times that the city wants to make changes to missing middle, nothing has occurred over the last probably since 21 when it was enacted. It's great if missing middle offers complex housing such as duplexes, triplexes that blend in with the neighborhood or they're accessible to a main transit area. We can try to stick them in the middle of a neighborhood, and they can do that, unfortunately. They can build by right, thanks to missing middle, anywhere, anytime, for density purposes. So I just want to get a fast response from each of you on what you see good and what you see bad about missing middle in Raleigh. Yeah, Cameron, you might as well start.
Let's do it.
Instead of being last.
Okay, so I just finished talking about extracting from developers. We should do
Larry,
that.
can you have each person identify themselves for the people online
Yes,
before they speak?
please.
Yes, Cameron Zamot.
That was Cameron.
We should extract from the big guys, but we should make it easier for the small guys to get through the permitting process. And that is by expediting administrative site review, ASR, and site plan review. Those are the two things in the permitting process that we have to expedite for small developers. And the reason that we have to do that is because right now, the barriers that we have in place with a long ASR and SPR are leading to only high budget developers being able to bleed for long enough to build in the end, at the end of that, like, year-long cycle, or however long it takes, if we can reduce that to a month or less, then we will be able to see smaller developers like this gentleman that I talked with the other day and sat down and asked about his project that he's got going on in East Raleigh. They will be able to make lower cost projects. And that is what we're looking for, right? The missing middle isn't that, it's the $1 million townhomes that are bad, because that's not solving the missing middle problem. It's that we can only build expensive right now because of the permitting process and also because of the UDO. So besides making those two specific changes to the permitting process that I just mentioned, we also have to change a couple of the setbacks and the features in the UDO so that we can actually have smaller lot sizes, smaller units for these styles of missing middle, and that reduction in essentially area is going to naturally reduce the price of these units as well. So to review, 2 changes to the permitting process and a couple additional changes to the UDO, and we're going to start seeing actually affordable missing middle housing.
For your information, the UDO has already shrunk property sizes. They can build within 5 feet of the next door neighbor's line.
I think setbacks are important. I also think minimum area.
Yeah, so they've already kind of shrunk it front, back, and side. So there's not much more without just eliminating, doing the 0 feet. There's not much more they can do. Just fun to comment. Who wants to go next?
Are we going in order?
Again, I can't.
However you want to do it.
Just go ahead, Clark. So,
Me?
I was gonna let Clark go, actually. Clark, go ahead.
Please
Stephen-
identify yourself.
Clark, go ahead.
Hello, AI, good to, no, I'm just kidding. Hey, Clark Rinehart, good to see you. Or good to have you see me, I guess, maybe. I lost the thread a little bit, missing middle, and Stephen Wilk is building in my neighborhood on East Lenore Street, right? 10, 12 units. Intentionally built this with a little bit more density than he was allowed to before, and wanted 2 of the units to be affordable. Now, again, these are not traditional North Hills houses too, right? This is another thing we have to reckon with as a city as we grow, is my definition, having 2 kids and what my living setup looks like square footage wise, and what's affordable to me might be very different from what other people prefer. So these units are a lot smaller than I would probably be looking for at this stage of my life, but made 2 of those affordable. And because of some of the economics that he was facing with some of the permitting process, just a +1 to what Cameron said in a lot more detail.
Clark, is that by missing middle or is that by rezoning?
No, it was by missing middle, it's the best one. No, this is right across the street from Ligon.
Oh,
This is the same guy I was talking about.
Stephen, yeah, well, I was gonna +1 because you said the permitting stuff. Trail things, I'm sorry, friends. But, you know, we have small developers. When people say I'm pro-developer, I say yes because of Stephen Wilk, who intentionally is building some of these interesting typologies of a generation ago and trying to include affordable and attainable houses in these developments, right? These aren't 37 stories. These are 3 stories with 12 units. I want to say yes to that kind of development, which I believe is good development, placemaking oriented development. I think it gives us those possibilities. I think the economic climate right now is really tricky to get some of the projects done. Coming back to kind of a little bit of the blurred lines from before. I also want to see some of the by right zoned opportunities that we have as surface parking lots in a lot of our neighborhoods, not just downtown, but in urban growth centers, these infill properties that sometimes are zoned DX12, NX12, or DX20. I want to see those utilized for a housing dense project, right? And we need those in the different growth centers as well, along with some of the other typologies that are in the missing middle categories.
yeah, so you favor kind of changing the focus rather than.
I would love to see all the infill properties, all the surface parking lots just go away. If I'm gonna go just full blast on you and like, you know, for the
You want to see more use of commercial properties?
I want to see more mixed use, you know, housing heavy developments on infill parking lots, because parking is killing our affordability calculus. We don't talk about it enough because it's not sexy. Most of us probably drove here. All of our parks are very prioritized in terms of how we store cars. But another part of our affordability calculus about transit
Just want to understand.
is how we do parking in our city in general. We've removed parking minimums, which I think is helpful for some of the typologies, but we still prioritize parking in almost all developments.
As you probably know, Jonathan Melton would love to see that same thing.
Same way.
Jonathan Melton, that's his thing too, is to get rid of parking lots and build housing on
Yeah, I'm
them.
not sure it's totally get rid of parking lots. I think it's using some of the by right versus the rezoning cases. It's leveraging some properties that have the potential already to do the kinds of things in a public-private partnership way that economically would be viable.
Yeah, and most of them, fortunately, do not sit within the middle of a neighborhood, so they're usually out closer
Yeah.
to a roadway.
I think those are ideal as well. I'd rather that than a McMansion in your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right, in general.
Josh, want to take a shot?
All right, I'll go. Sana Siddiqui. So question I believe was missing middle, what's good about it, what's bad about it? I think missing middle could be a good tool, especially for affordable housing. I think this was part of housing reform that was passed 2021, 2020 timeframe. And prior to that, I think 70% of the housing in the city of Raleigh was just single homes. So it has allowed us to build more housing and different kinds of housing. So that's been good. I believe, I don't know if this wasn't considered at that time or it's just part of the learning process, but there were no guardrails around it. So now that we're looking back and we're realizing that maybe there should have been some more guidelines around this, guidelines around infrastructure, around affordability, around how the housing fits into the existing neighborhoods. So those are the things I think we need to be more considerate of moving forward with missing middle. So again, I think it could be a good tool, but right now we just need to more guidelines. We need more guidelines around it.
Okay, Josh? And just wait.
Josh Bradley, Christine looks disappointed already. No, when it comes to missing middle, if it doesn't guarantee affordability, if it doesn't guarantee it, because we're not talking about 85% AMI, right? 85% of AMI is better than I do, and I'm not living on the streets. We need to be focusing on 50% of the AMI or below, 35% of the AMI below, and people that are actually been pushed into the woods. So missing middle to this day has not encouraged a glut of affordable housing. It's just like ADUs. Like people are like, ADUs are going to solve housing. Let's also at the same time, deregulate Airbnb. So you've got a whole lot of people that are building ADUs that can short-term rent them, and that really doesn't help at all the housing problem. So without any guarantee of affordability, the missing middle is a disaster, because when it comes down to it, if you're looking at it from a profit point of view, it is not going to make you a lot of profit to get people out of the woods and to get people housing. But that's not what the city's about. The city's about helping its citizens. So if you think trickle-down housing will work, did you pay attention to trickle-down economics? Because it's very similar. So in my opinion, and it's just me, and we all have different opinions, the city should focus on using its land and building housing, cutting out the middleman, hiring accountants. There's ways you could do it. It's been done. I'm willing to discuss at length. Probably not the good venue right now. Is like deregulation. Regulation is always there for a reason. There's not a reason that we just let people do what they want to do, because regulation is cooked into the system. Yeah, I mean, it might help to cut down some of the permit times. It might, and I would be willing to do it if they gave, more than 50% to people that are at the bottom of the socioeconomic ladder, or the people that are working in the city. Because let me tell you, there are a lot of people that work for the city and in the city that have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to get by, to barely squeak by in a 1-bedroom apartment. And there's been a prevailing theory recently that if we get people into really tiny houses, we can still charge market rate. But there's a whole bunch of units together, a whole bunch of parking space size, efficiency apartments that you can throw in, and we're going to call it affordable. We're going to call it micro housing, and the developers are going to put like a line of 300 square foot condos up and down their towers, and that's going to somehow do it. But that does not really solve it for anybody that's just not one person. Like if you've got a family of 3, a 300 square foot apartment is going to be hard to do. So when it comes down to it, we have the moral responsibility as a city to make sure that we take care of everybody, and it's always a better effect on the city as a whole. The only thing that has been shown statistically to lower crime in an area is to make sure that people had the housing and the services they need in the area. That's the only thing. Increasing policing will put more people through jail, which is a more expensive way to handle homelessness than actually providing housing by a good margin. So when it comes down to it, y'all, I don't have anything against density as long as it addresses the people that need it most. And the people that need it most are the people that do things for us, the people that pick up our trash, the people that work in the water system, the teachers. They all need to have a place to sit, because if we price everybody out and if we just have rich people moving in, what are rich people gonna do when they need to eat or they need to have their kids educated? They're not gonna do anything or have their trash taken out. They're not gonna be able to do anything because nobody's gonna be able to afford to live in the city to do the work. So,
Thank you.
thank you, Josh Bradley.
Yes.
Hey, Mike Provoznik here, Gay resident. Just something sparked up my interest between Cameron and Josh. You mentioned the increasing permitting time, which I work for a civil engineering firm. Couldn't agree more. It's a nightmare. And then your point, Josh, was, getting more 50% AMI, 35% AMI, maybe working collaboratively with developers for an express review time if they offer affordable housing. If you want to take that idea.
Can I say like one sentence in response to that? It's gonna be like one sentence.
Go ahead.
I think the best part of that solution was that it did not come out of my head, and that it came out of somebody else's head who knows more than.
Well, we're gonna get to that portion pretty soon. I think having a dialogue with the audience will not be a problem. Just be patient. Yes. David, go ahead.
One question, Mr. Middle is a big deal for me, especially since I'm looking at a 3-story townhome in my backyard. Okay, so,
David, can you speak up a little?
sorry, I'll try to speak up. David Ray, what district I'm in? I'm in yours. So, a mile south of North Hills, I've lived there since 1987. Okay. We have 17 units going in my backyard on 1.7 acres of land. Okay. So my only question to you guys is if you were on the council and you were faced with repealing missing middle tomorrow, would you vote yes or no? It's very simple.
I'll vote yes. I would vote to repeal it. As it currently stands, we need to go back to the drawing board completely. It needs to go away until we find a solution that actually does what we need it to do.
Yeah, what David didn't mention, his particular case is the location, which should play into the approval process, but it doesn't. It's in a very dangerous intersection on 6 Forks and Anderson Drive.
It is the most dangerous intersection.
So that's what I mean about, build by right, but build by right with sense. You can't have missing middle
Anderson
untethered.
and 6 Forks.
So,
I was just asking in terms of crash data.
So just one other clarifying thing is, in 2008, 2015, the same property went up for rezoning to do virtually the same thing. It was denied by the city both times. So due to missing middle, they're able to do it without hardly any notification, even though they don't have to pass rezoning. So anyways, the answer is yes or no, which are you gonna vote for?
So, I would like to add that this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. It could be a good tool for affordability. It allowed us to build more housing, but that's exactly the kind of thing I was talking about, that there were no guardrails around it. Anyone can just go build anywhere that they like with no consideration of infrastructure or existing neighborhoods. So, I would say that we try putting some guidelines around it, and especially around community engagement, where we have to inform and include feedback from the residents. So you have to know what's going on in your backyard and you have to be able to respond to it. So I would start with putting those guidelines around it. And then if it doesn't work, then I think we need to just get rid of it.
Clark Rinehart, no to repeal, yes to reform.
yes. That's part of the problem right now, before you can go on, is the way missing middle works right now. It cuts out the public, goes through administrative review with no public input, and then it will eventually be either approved or amended, but there are no guardrails for it. It is what's written in the UDO, what's allowed, and it can be built. Right now, it's built by right.
Also,
Okay.
exactly what Clark said, I would not repeal it, but I would take a look at it and put some regulations.
You said one more
Go
time.
ahead, Tim.
Ken Spring Valley, one statement and then 2 questions. Look, John Kane has been disrespected quite often at these meetings, and yet if we look at the hundreds, if not thousands of people who were living very near here, who were never at these meetings, who are residents of Midtown and are never represented in these meetings, had those places not been there, think how much more sprawl there would be. He has done more to promote density than anything I've heard said here, so we need to give him some credit for that. We have a lot of a very prosperous economy that we've been blessed with. That does mean that people are coming in with good jobs. And this is the main thing underlying it, that and inflation. And I'm happy to say my house, I've lived in Raleigh over half a century, and my house is assessed at 12 or 15 times what I bought it for. That's over years. That's because of location and inflation, and does that. Possible solutions, which I have not heard discussed. One is, in many cities, commercial buildings are being converted into residential structures. We have, shopping malls, high-rise office buildings and things that could be converted here. Is that part of the solution? And the second has to do with corporate purchases of housing, where the corporations are coming in and buying up a lot of property for rental property. That's increasing a huge amount of demand on property, but it's all, it's driving the prices up. And there's been talk about regulating that, and has that been an approach? Could that be approached further? And the third about gentrification, there was an article in the News Observer a number of years ago. An elderly black couple lived over near St. Aug's in southeast Raleigh, and they sold their house for $80,000, something like that. Doesn't seem like a lot, but that was a lot more than they bought it for. This was for them, their retirement, their equity. And you can call it gentrification, but this was a blessing for those people to do that. And I think we cannot threaten that from happening.
Yeah, but where are they gonna go though? You know.
Well, they moved elsewhere.
Yeah, they moved elsewhere. That's what you're kicking people out.
Well,
That's
they
not-
didn't get
that's
kicked
not-
out. It was their choice. They got
well,
older, or
because
they die and
can't
they're.
Stay here.
They die.
Because there's nothing affordable. So that doesn't,
Well,
don't
they
tell
didn't-
me my house is worth $1 million, but I can't go anywhere.
Okay, let's keep it to simple questions, not conversations, simple questions. Go ahead, Cameron.
Do you have a simple question baked into that?
About the investor housing, investors buying housing, corporate buying housing, and about reconverting buildings that are from commercial space into residential. There's another source of
I think it was very brave to defend John Kane in this room. Shout out to you there. Commercial spaces. It's hard to convert those into residential spaces because mostly air conditioning and also the building code is just a little bit different. So I'm sure that would be possible, but it would be, I think, a pretty lengthy process and maybe expensive.
Maine does in a lot of places.
Yeah, I think we can retrofit for sure. I think North Carolina and Raleigh sometimes, at least what I've observed, is somewhat resistant to new and innovative ideas sometimes, but I think that is a great idea.
There are good examples in the area. There's the hotel around the corner that was converted into residences within the hotel. I tried to get those people to come in and talk, but they did it without any incentives. They did.
I guess maybe what I'm thinking of is like a high-rise office building, turning office space into residential space.
You might get that opportunity.
Okay, and then the second part of your question was
what corporations buying residential property?
Renters commission. I think there should be a renters commission in town that somehow organizes and advocates. I'm not entirely sure what it would look like for renters, so that it's an actual city sanctioned body, similar to planning commission or BPAC, that would have the renters interest in mind. Because I think all of the victims of what you're talking about right now are renters. I myself am a renter, and my landlord at home, at least, is not a person but actually a company. And so having a way to organize with other renters and maybe advocate for, I don't know, withholding of rent until you maintain habitable conditions or something like that would be the way that I would approach that. But some sort of board.
And the problem comes with all that money comes in to buy it in the first place. You know, then the price goes up.
I think that might be above city council jurisdiction, but I do agree that's a problem.
Free market.
I wanted to, just in the interest of add another idea, and I invite Mitchell if he's got something to say on this too, because he's online. A couple of things. One is there's a lot of land, I think, and we need to do some type of inventory on what is available that the state of North Carolina owns, that the city owns, that NC State owns, and find out where we can go and negotiate to get this land freed up. It's sitting there. A lot of state workers don't work downtown anymore. And there's property there. If we don't go and ask, we're never gonna find out. I believe we need a complete inventory of the land in our city. And you know, I'd like to see that up on a chart of like, okay, we got this, and this, these things are available. Who owns them? What's gonna happen with them? And start negotiating with some folks. The best place to negotiate is unused property and find out what we can do to make it, we're gonna have to do that type of thing. This is my 2 cents. But I think there's also a lot of good ideas over here. One other thing I wanted to ask you all, what would you think about we move Central Prison out of here and Dorothea Dix, or not Dorothea Dix, what is it, the School for the Blind? Yeah, and move those out, get that property freed up and start looking at that type of thing. There's a lot of towns in North Carolina who would love to have the prison there with all the jobs that come along with it. Those are just a couple of ideas.
Are we gonna come back to that or both? Yes.
You're welcome to comment on it. I was actually gonna change the focus a little bit.
No, I don't, we're close, so yeah.
Yeah, because I want to make sure we get it, before you have to leave, I want to make sure we get into all the topics. And the last topic that I pointed out as a priority, of course, is transportation. Now, I know some of you are focused on bicycle transportation, but this particular area for the city as a whole, predominantly, we still are an auto-driven society here. This particular area, Six Forks Road in particular, has already, I shouldn't say it's reached capacity because the city tells me that's not true, but it's near capacity. The only feeder roads around here haven't had any infrastructure improvement in probably the last 20 years, other than adding bike paths to them, which narrows down the focus on autos traveling on the same roads. So a 2-lane road on one side now becomes a 1-lane road. It's good to share it with the bikers, more safe to the bikers, that's all fine and good. But we have to find a way to move people on roadways around here without going through neighborhoods. And there's already plans within the area plan locally to do that, try to create parallel roads at a cost. So my question for you really is, at which point, when property is being developed, should a contribution be coming from the developer to help build the roads that are necessary to get around their own development? Take the ones along St. Albans, for example, like you pointed out the density along St. Albans. There's a back road that runs parallel. That road will not be built until all of the building is done and maximized out, and then his attention will turn towards the roadway. So depriving the citizens of an alternate way to avoid traffic, basically, another way out, and connecting between 2 major corridors. So that's my question for you is, how do you see a developer developing property relative to infrastructure expenditure? Because the city right now has a tendency to wait until the developer does his portion of infrastructure and then come in after the fact. So do you understand the question? How do you view developers' share of building infrastructure?
I'll take it. Nobody else wants it. The developer should be responsible for the impact, whether it's traffic, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's water and sewer, whether it's resilience of the community. They're the ones that are making the money. If city council is gonna grant them rezoning to make their property a whole lot more valuable, then they need to contribute to the city, and they need to do it. Again, I only support density if it involves affordability, and otherwise I don't. But I think it's and this is Josh Bradley, I think it's very important that if the developer is gonna come in and make all this money doing all this stuff to develop it, then they should be responsible for the effects, the infrastructure, the transportation, the whole 9 yards. And it'd be awesome if they put a multimodal stuff by there, but it should be on them because they're the ones that are financially benefiting from what's going on. It's certainly not us.
When you answer that question, could you also tell me whether or not impact fees are legal or illegal in the state of North Carolina? Because that really has an impact on there, because it's not legal in the state of North Carolina, they can't do it anyway.
I'm pretty sure it is illegal in North Carolina. We've got a pretty fascist government.
I think this is a great example of a less is more approach. I think developers should kick in for that. We've talked a lot about extracting from developers, that's great. I think the city at a pretty low cost could restructure its transit system. That is something that I feel personally very strongly about. I agree that everybody on bicycles is probably not going to happen in Raleigh anytime soon. It's very heavy around here. But we could improve our bus system tremendously and actually make it serve more of the population. And again, I know that we're in the South, it's culturally, like buses are a little bit tenuous, but like the South is changing and a ton of people ride the bus. There are a couple of key ways that I would want to change that system, primarily just making it zonal service instead of hub and spoke service that centers at the Raleigh station. But beyond that, I think I would need to consult with staff to really drill into those ideas a little bit more. But I think restructuring the system is not a capital project. It's not building anything new. It would be a very inexpensive way to move people efficiently.
I'd like to add to improving the transportation infrastructure here, how we can look at it short term, what we can do short term versus long term. BRT, I'm glad we're doing that. I believe we could have done a lot more with our transportation. We could be looking at a lot more long term, but BRT is also a long term project. It's not gonna be ready anytime soon. We're looking at the first one, I believe, in the New Bern corridor to be ready, in like 3 to 5 years or so. So I look at that as a long-term project. Short-term, what we could start working on right now is improving our infrastructure so that our roads are walkable, our sidewalks are so that the people can walk to their closest bus station, and also have more transit stations, more bus stops, more frequent bus stops, and more timely transportation system, so that people can, this is the short-term thing that we can immediately start working on, where people can walk, what is it called, first and last mile, I believe, that's the term, that everyone should be able to walk to a transit station within one mile of their origin and destination. So that, I believe, is something we could work on short term.
Thank you.
Can I talk a little? Josh Bradley again. BRT is a great idea. Transit overlay district is going to,
Bus rapid transit.
Sorry, we're still on transit, bus rapid transit. When you zone the transit overlay district in a way that it pushes out a majority of the people that ride the bus, and you're hoping to give bonus density to developers that maybe out of the kindness of their hearts, they'll throw on a couple of units, it's gonna defeat the purpose of it, and it's gonna be a boondoggle in the long run, because if you push out the people that ride the bus, then even if you have fast buses, it's kind of a waste, right? Like, cause I know a lot of people in all different social classes and incomes and everything, and I don't know a lot of extremely wealthy people that ride the bus. And rather than do that, if we built our transit around ridership, increase buses to where they go, or at least not gentrify out the people on the transit routes that are gonna use it. Like, the last mile would be awesome, but there are people that can't walk a mile, you know? There's people that can't bike. I mean, a lot of us, I wish I could do it more, but there are people that can't do that. So anytime we put these plans in order to make it more bikeable or more hikeable and stuff, we need to really make sure that we have a carve out for people that absolutely can't ride bikes due to disability, or can't walk long distances, because that affects me very, very personally, because of, you know, I would have family dealings. But thanks.
Stormie, welcome.
Thank you. My apologies that dealing with clients, so unfortunately in the hospital.
Let Clark address the question.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how we're gonna do things, but we're not gonna outbuild the demand for car traffic. One more lane brings more cars.
And I think as we look at other cities that have continued to add, not a snap, but a crack, good. God, I was making it. We're not gonna outbuild, car transit. We're gonna have to decide as a city across our neighborhoods to engage more. As Cameron mentioned, you know, a lot of people in Raleigh who are car dependent go to other places and they happily use transit at their ability level. Maybe it's not last mile walkability, rollability, things like that, but we have to get serious about it. I would rather at this point be an either or standpoint to where we just commit to traffic and cars and long commutes and all the things, or we start, you know, for folks who have a level of privilege, you know, we start getting serious about other transit options, because one more lane does something in the short run, maybe the first few months, but it just brings more traffic over time. It's very costly to maintain, which is something Cameron's talked quite a bit about. And I want to see multimodal infrastructure, particularly in places where we have more density, so that people start over time to stop preferring that as their only source of transportation. Car light has been my posture, not car free, but I think it's something we have to be serious about in our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Stormie, we've addressed affordability, density, and transportation a little bit. Do you want to just take a couple minutes to just delve into each one of those?
I feel like y'all solved all of those problems before I got.
We've opened up a lot of open cans of worms, I think.
So again, my name is Stormie Forte. I currently serve on the council and running at large again. Was there like specific questions that you asked, or?
They have to go back and think about. Let's say for affordability, it's the primary one. When you're building along a frequent transit corridor, why isn't there more affordability? The developers are not buying into the current incentives that the city is offering. Basically, you don't have an affordability policy that's working with development. The natural fit, just as with I think it was Josh that mentioned that, you know, affordability should be available, especially along corridors where people are gonna take a bus. That's where the population is, and you have to bring the population to where the buses are gonna run. We've gotta find a better way to do that. So that would be my question to you, is how do you do that?
Well, some of what we're already doing, I don't know how many folks in here are familiar with Heritage Park, but that's a development an area that's close to Dix Park. It's currently owned by the Raleigh Housing Authority. It's about 123 units right now, set to be demolished in a couple weeks. And what's gonna come in its place is 1,000 units of housing. About 300 units are gonna be 30% AMI, and it's gonna go all the way up to market rate housing. So that's a project that the city's working with the Raleigh Housing Authority on. It is on a transit corridor. It's very walkable. It's close to downtown, close to NC State. So folks will have opportunity to live, work, and play in the same area. And again, it is on the transit corridor. We use some of our affordable housing bond money to offset some of the costs of that particular project. So that is one example of adding some affordability in the exact types of places that you addressed. I think a lot of times folks don't necessarily understand how the city's affordable housing fund actually works. When we start talking about doing bonds for transportation and bonds for parks, the bond amounts can be a lot larger because the city is actually doing the project itself. So if there's gonna be a park, whatever facility is being built, that's a project that the city's doing, so it's gonna cost more. The way our affordable housing fund works is that when we've got nonprofits and folks who do affordable housing, the city actually pays some of the money to offset some of the costs to get those projects actually developed. And so we don't do as much of a amount with affordable housing bonds in and of themselves, because the city is not actually building the housing. We're partnering with other entities that can get tax credits and get a lot of other things that you don't get when we do a park and things along those lines. And so when we get contributions from developers for that fund, that money is going from that particular developer into the fund to go out to CASA or Healing Transitions or a lot of the other nonprofit partners that you're familiar with in the city to actually add more affordable housing units, either through projects like Kings Ridge, which is over near Wake Med. It's 100 units of housing that was built specifically for people coming out of unsheltered situations and going directly into housing. And so we've got those partnerships. Healing Transitions has expanded their men's campus and their women's campus with money that the city has provided for those opportunities. And so there is a model to create more affordability within the city of Raleigh. We are doing some of that. Is it at the pace that we needed to be? No. 2 years ago, they were telling us we needed 65,000 units of affordable housing throughout Wake County. We got an update last week. We need 67,000 units of affordable housing throughout Wake County. It's not all going to be built in Raleigh. I mean, so we've got to work with our other municipal partners as well as our county folks to get that housing deficit under control.
And going along with that, while you're up, we talked about missing middle and the shortcomings of missing middle, and the fact that missing middle is not creating affordable living, it is going the opposite way, creating more market rate housing. And I don't think that was the original intent of it. And then you couple that with the right to build and cutting out the public's input into what is being built. It's kind of like you're isolating it out of the neighborhood rather than integrating it into the neighborhood. And I was wondering if you just want to address that real quickly.
Yeah, I would say definitely when because I was on the council at the time when we passed the policies related to missing middle, the thought process was if you own a duplex, triplex, quadplex in a particular area and wanted to tear it down to build the same thing there, you had to go through so many obstacles to be able to do a replacement on a property that you already own, the same type of housing. So when we put the missing middle policy in place, it was really easier for folks in all parts of the city who wanted to basically tear down and replace something that they already had without having to go through the obstacles. Unfortunately, some folks did take advantage of the structure of missing middle and went a little bit more extreme than we initially anticipated. But the thought process behind it is you want to be able to have opportunities to do gentle density in different communities and neighborhoods. Unfortunately, the market is what it is, and people will buy properties, acquire them, and by right tear them down and be able to put other things in their place. And what I tell folks a lot is folks come to the city council, and certainly we're like the first line, but having some of these conversations with your members of the General Assembly is also important because the laws that are in place allow for some of the missing middle and other types of housing to be developed. And certainly if we start trying to curtail that, there is a very active home builders lobby that will make sure our hands get smacked down if we try to prevent folks from building what they can build by right on their property.
Well, there's been a lot of suggestions on how to modify missing middle. From what I understand, nothing has been changed within the missing middle protocols that are already established in the EDO. And I don't know how many more lawsuits the city can tolerate, as it continues to go on and on and on. Because the way it's being done now, build by right without any neighborhood participation or any neighborhood review is just not working.
That's an opinion, by the way. That question is an opinion that you just asked. Let's be fair.
That's fine.
Okay.
And you're welcome to offer alternate.
You ask a lot of questions that way. They're well loaded, Larry. That's not a fair question.
I know.
It's okay. I'm fine. So, go ahead. So, will we respond to that?
Sure.
Again, I think. Yeah.
I live in North Raleigh. And in a free country, thank you.
I'm sure my Carolina basketball team is scrapping just scoring right about now on the court. But I do understand and appreciate the question. But again, one of the challenges we have in Raleigh that's very different from a lot of other municipalities, and we say this to folks all the time, there are members of the General Assembly who don't live in Raleigh. They live, or not from Raleigh, they're from other places. When they come to the city of Raleigh, they're laser focused on what we do. And again, with a very active home builders association and lobby, the second we try to make a lot of the changes that folks are asking us to make, as we saw with the case in Durham, one constituent got upset about a zoning case, went to the General Assembly and had all the statutes for the entire state of North Carolina changed over one case in Durham. And so it is complicated for neighbors who say, why don't you do more? Why don't you push more? We're not in a state where we've got that type of support. So again, if you want to go talk to folks in the General Assembly and ask them about making some of these changes, I would welcome that opportunity, and please give me the feedback that you get when you go over to have those conversations, because a lot of it is not just locked into the members of the city council, but there are other entities that have a little more control than we do about housing policy. And that's just being completely honest and transparent.
Thanks, Stormie. I think we've heard quite a bit from the candidates. I think you all pretty much heard what they had to say on different subjects. I would now want to get, because I know we're running a little tight on time. I want to make sure I address the questions that might come from the audience. So if you want to have a question, you have to raise your hand, stand up, give your name and ask your question.
I'm John Wardlaw. I live in the city of Oaks in the neighborhood of Hickory Hill. I have 9 trees in my yard. I'd like to know what you guys think about reinstituting the leaf pickup that's going to go away next year. I've been a lot of money from tons of leaves out to the curb. How many bags would I have to get? I'm 84, not going to do it. That's a service I think we should provide to the city of Raleigh, and particularly people. How many people live in Hickory Hills or in this neighborhood with all these trees? Yeah. Are you happy that we're not going to have leaf pickup next year? No. Okay. The other thing is, why would the city of Raleigh, and what are the statistics of how many cars use Quail Hollow, how fast they speed? Where are those statistics to say that you need to spend money to dumb down that street? That is a great connector street between Hardeman and Crab Creek. 44 feet. Yeah. That I use it occasionally. I drive it. If you want to put bike lanes there, paint them on the sides, but leave the sides alone, and you don't need 2 lanes. Where are the bicyclists? How many are there in Raleigh? How many ride there? Where are the statistics? When they did Anderson Drive 10 or 15 years ago, trying to dumb it down, they had the strips down there to count the cars over a month. They could average how many cars a day went, how fast they were, what time they were, and that turned out to be Anderson Drive did not need to be dumbed down. There wasn't a problem. I don't think there's a problem out here. I don't live on the road, I drive on the road, but look at the road. I don't think it's really a problem to try to spend the money that is what they want to do to dumb this street down.
Yes.
Dave Hockenberry. I live on Quail Hollow Drive. I have oak trees in the city of Oaks. The city of Oaks should pick up their own damn leaves. Thank you.
Okay, I had a question. So given your comment about the legislature, is there some like interaction between city staff and the mayor and the council that is not working, that could be working better? Or like, I've only lived here 6 years now, so, but I know the previous mayor was very contentious about, maybe combative with the council. I don't know if the current mayor is any better, but I guess, is there any more descriptions that people could tell us about how that works or could work better, or is there something?
Yeah, I personally think we all get along pretty well between the council, the mayor, and the city manager's office. So I don't think there's the level of contention and stuff that you were referencing from a previous administration. Was that your question, or was there more?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like, there was some, certain, maybe like the convention center Red Hat, where it's like the city council got notified late because of, was it the mayor or the city staff kind of told them late, or like there was poor communication there between city staff and mayor?
I don't know that I felt like it was late, but I think other people may feel like it was, but I didn't feel like the notification was late. So
okay, I just wasn't sure. It's like sometimes confusing about who said, like the mayor sets the agenda for the city council and city council responds. Or...
So what happens is the city manager's office and all of the department heads have a meeting and put whatever is supposed to be on the agenda. They compile the actual agenda and they push it out to the city council, and then we actually review it prior to us having the meeting. But it's not, we have a city manager form of government. So I guess if your question is who's I don't want to necessarily say who's in charge, but who actually is the person who manages the day-to-day operations of the city. That's the city manager's function. That's not the mayor's role. So, we don't have a full-time mayor. Some areas of the country where the mayor is a full-time employee of the city, the structure may be different, but we're all part-time. We're not full-time employees of the city. So it's not the mayor's role to quote-unquote run the city. That's not what her role is.
Thank you, sir.
Is that sort of surprising to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, you know, I guess, to be honest, like, this part-time council mayor is problematic. I feel like I wanna hire somebody who's full-time. Like, I want this to be your full-time job. Like, this is a big city.
Yeah.
Like, it deserves full-time attention. I think you should be paid full-time wages and be full-time.
Yeah.
So.
And that ever requires some ballot initiatives and some other things, and we've not done that yet. So I'm not sure, and I'm not sure that everybody would agree with you that that's what we should be doing, but certainly, you know, I appreciate your thoughts on it.
So the mayor's job by state law can't be like the CEO, can they? Do you know?
I think it's, because there are some mayors, I think the
Yeah,
Charlotte mayor gets paid and she's a full-time, if
Yeah.
I'm not
Oh, so we
mistaken.
can do
There
that.
are-
Okay.
So I think she is
okay.
full-time, we just don't have it in the city of Raleigh.
Yeah.
Is my understanding.
Yeah.
Yes, David.
The mayor is full-time compensation, but almost every city in North Carolina over 25,000 people is organized as a municipal corporation. Your council functions as your board, just like a company, and your city manager is, for all intents and purposes, the CEO. So that is the structure that is used throughout North Carolina for every major city. You may pay the mayor more in other cities because they have to do that work full-time as the chair of the board, for lack of a better term, but that structure is how North Carolina functions. And to Stormie's point, to change that structure, again, you're back at the NCGA, because that's literally how North Carolina runs almost all of its cities. I know of very, very few exceptions, especially over 100,000.
So the mayor does not have hiring.
The mayor is a chair of a board.
Okay.
So if you think about it, like any municipal corporation, these people want to be on the board. They want to be the board for the shareholders. The city manager is the CEO, and they run the company.
Yeah,
I
I agree with you, but what I'm saying is that some cities outside of North Carolina, the mayor has hiring, firing capabilities.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, though, you might as well be talking about other plans, but
Yeah.
yes.
Well, we could lobby to change that with our state government, but if that's what people want, you know.
Yeah, there are only 3 people that report to the city council. That's the city manager, the city attorney, and the clerk. That's it.
Yeah.
Cameron, what?
So I have a different experience, and a different background, because I've never been on city council, but I have been on city staff. And from my experience on city staff, it did feel like a heavily problematic relationship with council, specifically with the information bottleneck that happens at the department head level. And I've beat this drum a lot of times. I think that decision making, which is the job of the council, it's the job of the board, steering the ship. Decision making happens best when it's fully informed, right? Having good information typically leads to good decision making. I was working on the BRT project, and there were some concerning things that I noticed, and I just so happened to get a call from a city councilor who I had a prior relationship with from before I worked at the city. Won't disclose who it was. And we talked on the phone, nothing really happened. A couple of weeks later, I get a call from, or I get an email from the department director's secretary, and they said, you have a meeting with the department director. And in that meeting with the department director and the assistant department director, I was reprimanded for sharing information with city council. Not great. Especially if city council is trying to make the best decisions for the city, right? And so when there is that heavy restriction of information, it leads to bad decisions, and it leads to outraged neighbors, and it leads to staff turnover, because staff does not, I quit the city, like I quit the city, I didn't get fired, I didn't, you know, I handed in my resignation, I said, see ya. And I know a lot of other young, motivated folks who are doing the same. They're not just leaving for pay, that's one of the reasons they're leaving, but they're leaving for other reasons, specifically like they don't think they can actually make all the change that they want to make and that they thought they were going to make when they accepted that job offer. And a lot of that is coming from the city manager. And CEO analogy. If the CEO is screwing up the company and everybody's quitting and morale is low and we're at an $18 million deficit, maybe we should hire a new CEO. But it's tough when hiring a new CEO, in this case, hiring a new city manager costs $2 million in severance. So that's a conversation I've had with various folks. I can't say right now whether or not it's a situation that we need a different city manager, but that is the top dog on city staff. And if the team isn't doing well, maybe that is an indicative of a necessary change in leadership. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Is there anybody else has a question for the candidate? Is any last statement any of you would like to add? That
Larry, there's one.
Oh, sorry about that. Yes, please.
My question is, we had a case with our property where we knew the city was disingenuous, the city employees with their presentations, but no one would listen to us. And I do not want to vote for a candidate who does not listen to its citizens. Because yes, building big buildings and getting in new jobs is important, but you owe it first to the citizen. And so if the city presents something biased to any of the councils, then will you listen to the cities, to the people who are talking to you that live here and care, instead of saying, oh, that's big business for the city, let's get them in. No one seemed to listen to the North Hills project, which I'm not close to that. I'm close to North Hills, but not as close as the people who live there. The transportation problem is going to be terrible. Well, I know in that case, the city ran studies and said, oh, it won't, traffic won't increase. You've got a 37-story building, a 12-story building. Why do you say traffic will not increase when the traffic there is already incredibly awful? So when will the council start listening to its people? And my concern is, will you listen not just to the city employees, but to the people who are coming before you? I would like to know.
Yeah, all need to go quickly on that.
I'll try to, I'll make it super quick. I agree with you, and that's one of the things that I've been saying, that we need to bring more citizen voices into the council. We just talked about the structure of how this works. There's a CEO, that is a city manager, and then we have the city council that kind of works like an advisory board. So who's really listening to the citizens, right? The city council should be the liaison. They represent you, they get voted in by you, right? They're not interviewing with anyone else. You're the one right now, you're interviewing us. We answer to you. So I do believe that city council, if not directly, they should have processes in place where citizens or residents are being heard. And I know there are things in place right now, they could be improved upon. For example, if they come to you for feedback, there are listening sessions, we should also come back with how the decisions were made, whether we listened to you, whether we didn't, why we didn't, and educate you. If there's something that we felt like that citizens need to be educated on, then we come back and we close the loop on that. And just I'll add a quick point about the North Hills rezoning here. That is one of the things that I've been saying, that yes, it could be a great project. However, I believe personally, from where I sit, I'm sitting where you guys are sitting. I'm not in the council, so I just know what's available publicly. I believe that could have waited because there were things that still needed to be looked into. And one of those things was that there were some inconsistencies that were pointed out by the residents versus staff was saying, no, there are no inconsistencies. So, and maybe staff is right, maybe the residents are right. I would have waited to just close the loop on that and investigate it further to make sure what exactly is going on here.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. So I'm the one on the hot seat since I'm already on the council. And I will say my day job, I'm an attorney, so I'm often on disputes where somebody's gonna walk out of the courtroom happy, somebody's gonna walk out of the courtroom upset. And that's what judges do every day. They have to make decisions between two different people who can't decide amongst themselves how to resolve a situation. When you say we don't listen, it's not that we don't necessarily listen, but I recognize you from the Greenway project. We had 3 options. And regardless of which option we picked, somebody was gonna be upset because it was gonna be an impact on property 1, 2, or 3, right? And so it wasn't that we didn't listen, we just had to figure out what was gonna be, of the situations where folks were gonna be upset, what was the best option out of the 3? Because somebody was gonna be happy no matter what we ultimately decided. As it relates to the situation with North Hills, I hear what you're saying about traffic. We know that there's some problems there. There was a transportation project that was supposed to happen many years ago, well before my time on council, and funding issues caused problems and that expansion didn't happen. But to your point about traffic implications, with that North Hills rezoning, by right, the same number of units could have been built, they just would have been built out instead of being built up. So when they said there was not gonna be any additional impact in traffic, because by right, those same units, the same number of units could have been built, which means you would have had the same number of cars. And so building it up with the same number of units, same number of cars, there wasn't gonna be necessarily an impact because by right, the developer could have built out the same number of units and still had the same traffic impact. And now I will say this, Larry and I have had this, I know we've had this conversation, I know folks disagree, but I'm just saying what was presented, what our staff reviewed, that was the results of, or the analysis that we got, it would not have changed. I know you're ready to pounce, go ahead.
We wrote to you, we explained the situation. I lived directly across the street from this developer, the previous developers. I lived through 6 years of it. And now he's going to build a tower that will obstruct the sunlight from my home. I will not get any sunlight for the rest of my life. That is not a good situation. I can't even sell my house because who would buy such a thing? Who would buy a house that won't even get any sun? Okay, my yard will die. I will die. I cannot live without any sun. I lived in New York when I did my residency in the shadow of a building. I came here because I could see the sky. Now I won't be able to see the sky. You guys never even listened to us. We pleaded, we wrote letters. We were down on our hands and knees. Nobody listened. The Kane people came in. They brought people from the surrounding areas, from the hinterlands. They didn't listen to the people that lived in North Hills and have to put up with all of this. When they did their construction, I'm a physician, I had to go to work. They had their trucks blocking my driveways. I have pictures. I sent pictures to the city council of these trucks. I had to take Uber to go to work to see my patients. They had these trucks barreling through Lassiter Mill Road. I have kids next door, you know, play ball in the yard. They could have been easily run over, you know? This is ridiculous.
That's in a nutshell.
And we're talking about traffic, you know, where are these people going to live?
Are we gonna get through the rest of the response?
Yes, we are.
But I want to
Stormie,
finish
one of the cans of worms that I knew you were gonna open up.
It's a big word. It's not just a little word. We have to live with it. You make these decisions, tall buildings. Even the Tower of Babel was transitioned. And that was 10,000 years ago. You know, go talk to your friend Kane and tell him about this. Since you have some influence.
Let's let them finish.
Can I finish my?
Go ahead, go quick.
Yes, to answer you, I understand what you're saying, but I know that even Silver told us, well, I will believe whatever the city tells me. And that is not the way to do that. And the Parks and Rec Committee disapproved of, did not send our section to the city council to vote on because they voted against 9 to 5, not to recommend that. But, and we know that the parks, that the city was disingenuous. They had many errors in what they said. We pointed them out continually. We had a conservation lease on, a conservation easement on it that was never to be built on. It also violates the city water quality rules, and no one heard us. And I think that, yes, you need to listen to your people, and your people who live there, should they not already be protected first?
But I will say on that, I walked all 3 routes. So I had a chance to visualize all 3 of them and see what the impacts would be on each particular route. And so I can say for my vote, it was based on observations because I actually walked all 3 of them to see what the impacts would be. Now, I can't speak for any other council member, but I did actually go on all 3 routes.
Yes, they did, but does the city not care about conservation easements? Is that a case?
Yeah, we do.
I know, I'm trying.
I won't say anything else, Larry. One person over the side of you.
But even our project costs
Clark,
like $8 million.
I know Clark's probably watching his watch.
No, it's okay. I don't even know which thread we're pulling.
The question is.
Should we listen to you? Absolutely, we should listen to you. We have to be, you are in charge, right? You are heading to the polls.
No, we are not.
You are, because you're gonna make a decision right now as to who's gonna be on the council. It doesn't have to be the way it's been, right? So you're gonna make a decision right now. Are we gonna talk, are we gonna dialogue, or are we gonna, because like, I wanna make sure that I'm being fair to you.
No, you were doing perfect. You were.
Okay.
And
Is there,
I know everybody wants to say something. I know you do, but we have to stick to some kind of time so we can get out of here by the time we're supposed to be out of here. We have.
on the topic we're on right now.
Be quick, please.
In the business world, if you were a business, you must listen to your customers or you will be out of business. Tonight, we listen to you. If you're elected, you must listen to us, the customer, or the city will be out of business. That's all I have to say.
Let me just wrap it up for everybody. There is no question that people are losing faith in government because they do not listen to people. What we are asking for is a change in the way city operates and to give people more voice in every process where people are allowed to speak. You can't continue to limit people, especially for a rezoning, to 8 minutes of speech. That definitely does not satisfy what everybody has to say. In the former days of council, they would allow it to be unlimited. It just recently, because of various security concerns, the time is very precious and controlled. What we are asking for, anybody running for council, is to look to get more involvement of the public in the matters that affect the public. And that's what they're looking for, a promise for you, that you will give more emphasis to the people that elect you. Anybody have disagreement with that?
No, I think we also need a bigger room too. I think to some of your credit, right, we need to make sure that we're representative of our city too. I think it's easy to listen to your friends.
And also need to be able to ask city questions about their presentations when they're erroneous.
For sure.
And that's a big problem because the city can say anything they want and we can't hold their feet to the fire.
You will this week and next week. You will in November. You will, because you'll show up and you'll vote for us or against us. You have the power.
Listen to us.
We will listen to you.
Tell me whether you would listen to the public.
They're trying to tell you that.
If I listen, it means like always agree, because that's the challenge. If again, there were 3 routes, and so and I had conversations.
You're opening those cans again.
I'm just saying, because what does listen mean? Does listen mean that I always
You
have to
shouldn't have
agree
only
with
had
you?
3 choices. There were other choices. I narrowed down to 3 choices.
So.
Just giving you the stuff. Yes, please.
Another, maybe 2 sentences?
Go ahead.
No more
Go
than
for
that.
it.
And then poor Joshua has
Yes.
his hand up.
So, ma'am, I will listen to you.
No, I want, no,
And I'll listen to all of you. And all those folks that live up in those towers that aren't from here, I'm gonna listen to them too. And they might want something that is different than what you want, and I'm gonna listen to it.
Wrap up. Give this a couple minutes.
Does that answer your
Just be
question?
patient.
That's it.
Josh.
Hey, Josh Bradley, everybody. voting is important. I will pledge to listen to everybody that I can. I mean, that's kind of what I'm running on. And I have been, and it hasn't been super successful method to do it, obviously, because I've been not elected 3 times. So what I want to say to y'all, and what you're doing now and even more, is what I said earlier. We need to organize our neighborhoods. We need to talk to our neighbors. We need to get our neighbors into the CACs, and then we need to turn the CACs out to the city, because just voting isn't going to work. If you vote and then your person wins, and you've got to hold them accountable. And if somebody that you didn't vote for wins, you've got to hold them accountable too. But it can't stop at voting. You've got to organize for things that you believe in. There are going to be people around you that have the same beliefs, even if they're not my beliefs. I mean, that's fine. We all have different opinions, but we're stronger together. So the more people we can get on our side, the more our voices are amplified. So regardless of whether or not, if you think that I'm like just full of balderdash, like I'm sure there are people in this room, I think that you need to organize with your neighbors, you need to organize with your friends, you need to organize with your neighbors in your city. Get together and then bring as many people as you can into the CACs, which is now has funding again, finally, thanks. And then from here in the CACs, we try to reach out as many people as you can to get them there, because we're stronger together. The more voices are easier to drown out than the larger voices. So that's my thing. It's organization, organization, organization. We can't stop at vote. We can't. Even if you hate me, you want to run me out of town because I'm one of those crazy socialists that people are always warning you about. Yeah. That's fine, but do it together, right?
Thanks, John. Please, I've got one more thing I've got to do tonight.
And other people too, but.
I hate to be rude.
We don't matter.
I hate to be rude, but first of all, thank you, all the candidates, for coming tonight. I know we went past the time I probably allocated for you, but I appreciate you staying. I appreciate the contributions, and hopefully the people in the audience got to know you, listen to you, and as you say, they'll make up their mind at the polls.
Yeah.
And win or lose, hopefully this is not the last time we see you. You're still residents of Raleigh.
Clarifying that too, like when we started, your name was Livable Raleigh, right?
Yeah.
And Livable Raleigh has endorsed 2 candidates in our race, these 2. And so.
But let me tell you why that is. Livable Raleigh provides me the license to have.
Yeah, but I'm just saying we need to make sure we're all informed, right? That we're also.
This is not a Livable Raleigh forum.
I get that. I did see it there, yeah, but I wanted to make sure too.
I tried to change it real quick, but we went in and out.
I got it quick enough, but I want to make sure that, when we're here, we're talking to each other, but you also know, about us and about who's endorsing us as well, right? Along the way. And I think that's important, right?
Yeah. Yes.
I'd like to also add, I was endorsed by the Livable Raleigh as well as News and Observer, so, and Christina knows right here.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I do have one thing I want to do. One thing. Wait. I've got one thing I've got to do. Christina is here. Mitchell Silver is online. I just want to give them the opportunity to speak to everybody. They've taken time. They represent this particular area. I just want to give them a couple minutes to at least speak while you're all here.
Mitchell had to go.
Okay.
So
you got me, guys. Hey, everybody. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being involved. We are, I have so much to say, but I'm not going to bore you. I'm going to tell you, I've held a community meeting every single month since I've been in office, and I have not seen all these faces at my meetings, so I would love for you to come there so I can educate you and I can continue to let you know. I promise I did hear you. I was at your house. I was there. I voted with you, so don't forget me. Don't forget that that's not what it is. So let's remember, when we're having these conversations, we're trying to build a community within council. You're trying to build the council that can best serve you. So forgetting those of us who've been on your side is not the best way to do it either. So remember that you've got people who want to hear, but to the point, listening doesn't always mean agreeing. And that's not bad either. It means that we all have something to learn, and it means that we want to be open and honest with each other. There was one point that came up that I just wanted to be clear. It was about permitting. And I want you guys to please go watch the budgeting work session from February 16th. I need you to see the staffing study that says that we are missing 30 people from permitting, meaning that no matter how many things we put through, if I don't have the staff to put through those and make those expedited processes there, it's not going to happen. But what does that mean? Does that mean a property tax increase? Possibly, but I need you guys knowing that stuff. I have a budget lead collaborative, which we go through right before I came here. I was on that where we were talking about that specific meeting. I need you guys involved at the micro level so that I can help you understand how we make better decisions, and you can help us do that by putting people in council who are going to work together to do that. To your question before of how are you doing? The last council was contentious. It was. I do not feel contentious on this council. I feel like we do get along, but the lack of information that I feel we received is frustrating. It's very frustrating for me. I don't think that that I have all the information ahead of me before making decisions. I say that a lot on council. So as boring as our council meetings are, I know, please, 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 either come to my meetings so I can tell you about it or watch them because I need you to be informed. Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about your meetings, when and where.
Oh, it's the second Wednesday of every month. If you don't know, go to ChristinaForRaleigh.com. All of those are listed out, but it's at La Cucina Italian restaurant from 6 to 8 p.m. We eat dinner together. We talk about the big things. We had a big discussion about North Hills. I have so much information to share, but I can't do it in 5 minutes. So please come out. I have a book club. Right now we're going through the UDO. We're going through the UDO so that we can all understand what we're talking about when we get to zoning. We just did the Raleigh Charter. I'm sorry, UDO is the Unified Development Ordinance. Those are the rules along development. So when we're talking about that, I want to educate you because it's really hard to come to these meetings during election when we have all these ideas. It takes 5 people to pass any idea, 5 of us. So it doesn't matter if one person wants this one, but if this one wants a different one. If we're not in unison, that's what you're feeling. You're feeling the fact to I think Clark's point of you are in charge because you have to do the research to put the people on council who are going to do the things that you'd like us to do. So this is your time. I am here to help educate you. Please, please, please let me help you and let's make this the best city that we know it can be. So thank you so much. I will take up any more of your time.
Okay. Yes, Louis.
Did you recognize Chuck has been a new newcomer? The fact that they actually have a petition here, people would watch.
Oh, thank you for doing that. Yes, I did forget to know. Yes, those of you that want to get together with Chuck, I asked him to wait till the end of the meeting. You're welcome to do that. I'm gonna is there anything I want to try to close the meeting so you guys can have that discussion and then we can still get out at a reasonable time? And again, want to thank all the candidates. One thing, I know you all have websites. I'll try to, if you get them to me, I'll try to advertise your websites for you.
Early voting ends the 28th. The primary date, if you vote day of, is March 3rd.
Thank you.
You want
Yes.
the websites?
What?
Do you want us to call out the website?
You can just send me an email with the
Oh,
website.
yeah.
Thank you, Larry.
Or give it. Thank you all for coming.